Hi, I'm Tyler, and this is the Fox Valley Film Critics. In this episode of the show, we're going to be discussing the next in the lineup of the AFI's Top 100 American Movies, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, as well as the next film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Spider-Man Homecoming. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the show, brought to you by Groupthink Productions and Fox Valley TV. Joining us this week is legendary horror host and recent inductee into the Horror Host Hall of Fame, the Bone Jangler.
Hey,
Thank you so much for coming on.
It's a pleasure to be here. Although I am wondering what show I'm on with this rubber chicken. Makes me feel like I'm on my friend Sven Gulli's show, possibly.
The chicken is the star.
Oh, boy.
So tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I am, as you said, I'm a television horror host. I've been on the air for going on 16 years now. I have two programs. I have The Bone Jangler, where I host the horror and sci-fi and cult films. And then I have The Bone Jangler's Daytime Dungeon, which is known as Daytime Dungeon for short, where we host old cartoons and things. Both of those programs air on 43 stations around the country in 21 states. Also, I air on the internet. And we truly are worldwide when we say that we are seen around the world on the internet, because we regularly, every Saturday night, have viewers in places like Russia, Israel, Brazil, Japan, Kosovo, Malaysia, the Netherlands, Australia. You think there's Bone Jangler billboards up in Melbourne. Somebody from a commercial broadcast station in Australia needs to be calling the Bone Jangler like really soon. But yeah. It's a lot of fun, and there's like a fraternity of all of us, so I'm the president of the fraternity, so I get to hang out with all the fun people like Sven Gulli and Elvira and all the other fun horror hosts from around the country. Very
nice. I'm glad to have you on the show. So our first film for discussion today is Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, and why don't you give us the... I assume you've seen the film at this point. So.
I think I accidentally saw it in passing. Yeah, no, of course I've seen it. My thoughts on Psycho just automatically is, the main thought is that it's a game changer. Before that, every sort of supernatural or horror type genre film involved the supernatural. It involved either ghosts or monsters or some sort of unseen evil, something like that. In Psycho, it's a game changer because now we know the people, the thing you really need to worry about are the people, the everyday people. You don't know who you're dealing with. Psycho, of course, was based upon a novel by Robert Bloch, and Robert Bloch got all that from the story of Ed Gein from Wisconsin. Robert Bloch lived like not 40 miles from the guy, and you know, they actually had to tone down Psycho from the Ed Gein story because it's so grisly.
Oh my.
And that's why you look at Hitchcock's previous film, North by Northwest, it's in color, and then Psycho's in black and white. And the reason why wasn't to cover up the fact that the blood was, spoiler alert here, was, you know, the syrup or whatnot. No, it was, they had to tone it down because Paramount Pictures was very leery of doing this film, and Alfred Hitchcock waived his usual fee that he would get for a back-end deal, which he ended up getting like $6 million. It'd be like $50 million in today's money, and they had a shroud of secrecy over the film. And Hitchcock himself went out and he purchased the rights from Bloch to use the story. And then he went out and he purchased every single copy of the novel that he could find, so that they, you know, you couldn't do this sort of thing in 2017, you know, with the internet. There's no keeping a secret. But they really did a good job of keeping keeping what went on there in that story a secret from people, and people were just shocked. And it is a game changer. And people like John Carpenter in his great movie Halloween, of course, he's totally inspired by this film. Eli Roth is who is a friend. He is totally inspired. I mean, Hostel and all that stuff is totally inspired by Psycho. Psycho just changed the whole everything, just changed it. And that's kind of like the birth of your slasher film, too.
Yeah, totally. I was reading the Roger Ebert's review for the film the other day, and you brought up it's in black and white, and one of the things that he pointed out in his review, that he used his production team from the Alfred Hitchcock Presents as opposed to his North by Northwest team,
Right.
because he wanted to look and feel much lower, like not necessarily lower quality, but he wanted to have that kind of sleazier 50 Cent like sensibility to it, as opposed to doing like the North by Northwest style of shooting. But yeah, when I actually had not seen this film up until just this week, because like in my generation, a lot of the older horror films and thriller films, especially Alfred Hitchcock, they tend to be viewed much more academically from a viewing standpoint. I went to film school, and all those kids, they only watch like the Fast and Furious movies and the Avengers nowadays, and a lot of movies like this tend to be like just viewed in an academic sense, where it's not something that they engage with and like as something they enjoy.
Right.
And it's kind of messed with my head just watching this for the first time as like someone who's 22 years old now, and just like this kind of film is the kind of film people like filmmakers nowadays need to watch in terms of understanding suspense and understanding how to approach storytelling in a way that's actually going to affect people. Because of all of Hitchcock's films, I don't think this is necessarily the best one. We just reviewed Vertigo like a couple months ago, and that's probably his best one. But this is probably the one that's the most influential one in his entire filmography.
I would agree with that totally. It's just such an important film. And I agree with you, too, that today's horror filmmakers and suspense filmmakers need to take another look at this film and take some cues from it. And on the black and white front, just because it's 2017, that doesn't mean that we couldn't film one of these films in black and white. I think that the shadows and whatnot lend to the imagination and the sense of dread, and I think that the stuff that you imagine in your head and augment in your head is better than just throwing it out there. And you know, today so many of the horror films, I mean, there's plenty of great ones that have come out in the last decade, but you know, most of it, to me, it just seems like it's a primer for a serial killer or something. Like, here's how you go about doing this. I don't necessarily think that that's entertainment. I think that that's, I don't know, I wouldn't go next door to watch some grisly murder, so why should I go pay to go sit and watch it? I mentioned that I'm friends with Eli Roth. It's funny, every time he has a film that falls into that category, he's always like, oh, Bones, you got to check it out. And honestly, my favorite film of his isn't even a real film. It's a trailer, a fake trailer from the Grindhouse double feature. He did Thanksgiving, and it was like the Thanksgiving equivalent to Halloween. There's a pilgrim running around. It's just crazy. And he was supposed to put that film together, and he never did, but I wish he would, because that's more entertaining than a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff's just so graphic. I don't think you need to have all that in there. I think, like, the Hitchcock work testifies to that. I think it, you know, it's. I agree with you. It's probably not his best film. I don't think it was intended to be his best film, but
no, he was doing a very specific thing.
But it's so hugely influential, and with good reason.
Yeah, totally. How would Vertigo be your best Hitchcock film in your opinion, or what would you put as the best one?
Vertigo would certainly be up there, but I mean, as far as just watching it from a pure, you know, popcorn movie standpoint, Psycho's still my favorite. I tend not to get too wrapped up in what somebody's best work is or whatnot. I mean, I'm a musician also, so I don't tend to look at it like it's the Olympics, you know, like it's a sport. I look at it like it's just pure entertainment. And certainly Psycho is, like I said, it's a game changer. You had directors like Carpenter, Eli Roth, Dario Argento. There's a filmmaker for you to check out, hugely influenced by Hitchcock's Psycho.
I will say, I do think we are in something of like a modern horror renaissance, but it's all coming out of like the independent scene.
Yeah.
Like the last couple of years, we've gotten like Babadook, It Follows, lots of The Witch, lots of like really good, like mid to lower budget horror movies. The Conjuring movies are huge too.
Yeah.
So it's not that filmmakers now don't like draw upon a lot of the old style like approaches to filmmaking, but a lot of it's coming from a much more recent standpoint. There's been a huge upsurge in like John Carpenter like homages between It Follows, Attack the Block, Get Out. There's a lot of films that kind of follow his style of films, but they're not necessarily approaching it from the Halloween psycho suspense thriller aspect. They're going from they live really cheesy like idea of how to like say something about society approach. So it's not. They're not choosing the methods of how Hitchcock or Carpenter approached their filmmaking. They're approaching the surface of it, like what made it silly.
Oh, I agree. And you mentioned It Follows. It Follows is one of the best horror films, I believe, in the last decade, easily, and very hugely influenced by John Carpenter, like you said. I mean, and the director in that film plays games with the viewer a lot. If you watch, everyone will be like wearing a coat, and then these people won't be wearing a coat. Or they show this side of the neighborhood, and every yard is covered in brown leaves. And then they look at their friend across the street, and it's perfectly green grass, and there's tons of leaves on the tree. All sorts of little subtle things to unnerve you. If you go back and you watch it with those things in mind, you'll find tons of things like that in there. Of course, the score is hugely influenced by Carpenter's Halloween soundtrack.
That's all the time we have for this discussion. Join us in the next discussion for our discussion of Spider-Man Homecoming. Stay tuned.
Does this help at all?
Anything helps, ma'am. Just try to get some sleep now.
I can't sleep.
Yeah, me neither. I'm on my way.
Good coffee, huh?
Oh my God! What are you doing in my apartment?
Marvel's Spider-Man Homecoming is the 127th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, starring Tom Holland, who is the 10th portrayal of Spider-Man this year. What did you think of Spider-Man Homecoming?
Well, the 127th film, what,
I'm
this
being
week?
a little facetious, so just
a little bit. Well, you know, I would think, I'll tell you what I make of it, but I think you must be really enamored of it. Look at this, look at this slanted, you see this here? Now, I'm known as being a DC guy, but I worked in the comic book industry for 22 years. But let's look at this set. What do we have? We have Groot.
The Infinity Gauntlet.
The Infinity Gauntlet. We've got seven things on here for Marvel. And we've got one thing barely visible in the wide shot that's so dark you wouldn't even make it out anyway. So I'm sure that you loved it. But
Here, I'll resolve the issue.
Okay.
I don't have a greater...
Because Michael Keaton's in this Marvel film. I get it.
That's actually great. I didn't think the connection, but yeah.
Oh.
No, you're right. I don't have a greater Marvel versus DC bias. Like two of my favorite superheroes are Batman and Superman. So it's not like I have a greater preference for Marvel. It's just that for the moment they're the ones that are kind of getting the biggest films out. And Homecoming is just the newest in that line of them.
The
So.
127th film in the extended
It may be the
universe.
358th. I don't remember.
It might be, probably is. Spider-Man Homecoming, my thoughts on it were I found it enjoyable. I certainly, I like that they took it back to the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, that he's got homework and all that. I had a lot of problems with different things in the film, but overall I found it to be very enjoyable. I thought Michael Keaton was great as the Vulture. There's a scene, I think I can go ahead and say this on here. I don't think it really spoils anything, but there's a scene where when we first, and Marvel, somebody probably got fired for this, because Marvel and their fans, they always want other movies to be like total bright, blinding sunshine all the time. Why are those DC movies so dark? Why are they,
Yeah.
I don't know, why is that Wolfman movie so dark, or that Dracula movie so dark? But Marvel people will ask that question, why is it so dark? But when we first see the Vulture, it is dark out, and he flies up and casts his silhouette on the moon for just a moment, just long enough for people to go, oh, Batman. So that was a nice little wink there. But I enjoyed it. I think the film benefits from having Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, as Robert Downey Jr., doing his little turn there. Like I say, there's a lot of things that I could find fault with. I mean, obviously, if he was going to be involved with the team, it would be the Fantastic Four. If you know your comic books, it wouldn't be the Avengers. But this is how they've set it up. And I will go this far as to say that, what do you have, Spider-Man 2 on the set here. I think that this film is at least about in the same ballpark as that film was, as far as enjoyment goes, and perhaps maybe the most fun Spider-Man film so far, I think.
Okay, I'm going to have to go Gene Sicily or Roger Ebert right about now.
Here we go.
As someone who is apparently a Marvel fanboy and has no objective objective design, I actually found this to be one of the weaker Marvel Cinematic Universe movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would put this like roughly on par with like Thor: The Dark World or Age of Ultron in terms of like.
Ooh.
I don't hate those movies. I kind of like them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like them, but they're not. There's a certain amount of dysfunction in Spider-Man: Homecoming. That just has to do with the fact that I think the script is kind of not well conceived. Like all the people that worked on this, like I looked into the background on IMDb on some of the background on these guys, and their record was like Horrible Bosses and the Vacation reboot, and I was just like, oh goodness gracious, this is not foreboding well.
There's like 6 writers.
There's 6 screenwriters, and John Watts directed one other film that with Kevin Bacon called Cop Car, which I have not seen as of the moment. So I don't know what his like strengths are in terms of
Cop
that.
Car.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just some
That's great.
it's some low budget thriller movie with Kevin Bacon. So
I have to send myself a text message to remind myself to watch Cop Car or to not watch it. I found it to be a very fun movie though still. The fact that they bring him back to being a teenager, like I said, I really like that. Although they do overstate that, with how clumsy he is. I mean, it's like, okay, why don't you tell the origin story then again? Which I'm glad that they didn't, but I'm just saying, we get it, he's clumsy, he's awkward, he's a teenager, he's new to this. One thing I did find a problem with, even though I enjoyed the film, was that Spider-Man suit of his is just, I mean, it's like 10 bat computers and 12 Batmobiles, and it's just not how Spider-Man operates. He doesn't have all of that going on. He doesn't have Siri or whoever talking to him and telling him things. You know what I mean?
yeah, it bugs me that now like every single one of these movies has to have like infinite amount of like Tony Stark tech. So the Falcon is now a robot drone, and Captain America's shield now has like magnetic technology that Stark made, and the helicarriers have like the propulsive technology. So it's all just the movies are starting to float around Tony Stark obsessively. So that's not necessarily a problem. It just kind of draws away a little bit of the comics origin. But
in a way, this film functions best not as a superhero film, but as like a, I don't know, just to get my point across, like a Breakfast Club type film.
yeah, there's the one Ferris Bueller shot in the film where you see Spider-Man running in profile with the running shot in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and he just yells, "Great movie!" But in my problem, it's clear that the film everyone who worked on it worked their butt off. Like Tom Holland absolutely loves the fact that he's Spider-Man, and he is working himself to death to make sure that he's a good Spider-Man. Michael Keaton's Vulture is really good. I think that they handled like his origin story really intelligently. I don't think it's a problem of the actors or the special effects or anything like that, where I just think it's a problem of the writers are making really sloppy writing decisions in terms of how they kind of approach the script. And it kind of comes off on screen like there's a lot of things that you can kind of tell are set up that don't pay off, and then there are moments that pay off that aren't set up earlier. So
Right.
the film's clearly about trying to get Spider-Man. It's about Spider-Man's trying to get used to the fact that he's kind of stuck in this position in life, and it's supposed to be like a teenager movie. So you're a teenager, you're stuck in this position in life, and you want to be an adult, and you want to have all the responsibility, and you want to get out. So it's definitely approaching it from that angle. And it builds up to the moment where he ultimately decides he wants to just be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But I don't think the way they wrote the script, it necessarily reflects that change in terms of how his dealings with the Vulture necessarily build up to that. He makes mistakes, he loses this, as you see in the trailer, he does lose the suit, and he has to kind of face the Vulture in his crappy little hoodie suit that he made by himself, which is probably the smartest approach to how they've approached to how Spider-Man makes his costume in any of the 6 Spider-Man movies we've gotten so far.
I definitely like this film a heck of a lot more than the last Spider-Man film that we saw.
2 amazing Spider-Man movies, yeah.
And speaking of hoodies, I don't like my heroes or my villains running around in a hoodie, okay? People are like, well, in real life, it wouldn't be like, well, this isn't real life. So let's just knock that off off the bat. No. And I certainly like it better than Spider-Man 3 with Venom and all that. I mean, so much CGI and whatnot in there. Not like there isn't in this film. I mean, pretty much any time we see Spider-Man swinging around, we're looking at CGI. But it's much more palatable than Spider-Man 3. I enjoyed it. As far as superhero films go this summer, though, and not just because I'm more of a DC fan, but I'll still go with Wonder Woman over Spider-Man Homecoming. However, I would still recommend that the viewers go see Spider-Man Homecoming, even if they're kind of like, I don't know. I think they should go and see it. I think it's still plenty fun, but like I said, I think it works better as like a teen angst film than it does as a superhero film.
Sure. I would say that the fact that this has been a really good year for superhero movies thus far. We've gotten Logan, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and Wonder Woman, which are all generally agreed upon as being really good. And so just having this kind of in context of those, it kind of feels lighter than the other ones, which is fine. They obviously wanted to do like a lighter, more grounded superhero story. Like they kind of do like what they're doing with Daredevil and Luke Cage on Netflix.
Right.
But I keep thinking that in this Marvel Cinematic Universe, Daredevil and this version of Spider-Man probably live like 5 blocks from each other, and they just have completely different tones.
Right, yeah.
It's like, what the heck? I want to see these guys meet at some point, but overall,
nice.
I liked it. It's not a bad movie. It's just kind of a light movie, and I think they could have been a little bit stronger with the way they constructed the story. That's all the time we have for this segment. Join us for the following segment, where we'll be able to get the Bone Janglers movie recommendation for the week. Stay tuned.
Does this help at all?
Anything helps, ma'am. Just try to get some sleep now.
I can't sleep.
Yeah, me neither. I'm on my way.
Good coffee, huh? Oh my God! What are you doing in my apartment?
Hello and welcome to our final segment. Now the Bone Jangler will offer his movie recommendation for the week. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with a classic from 1986. It's widely regarded as one of the best films from the 80s. I would concur with that. It's one of my favorite films to just watch in general. And that would be David Lynch's Blue Velvet.
Very nice.
Named after the Bobby Vinton song of the same name. Typical Blue Velvet stuff. It Follows, which we talked about earlier, borrows a little bit from Blue Velvet, in the sense that what era is this exactly? What era are we in? Because Blue Velvet, it's set in the town of Lumberton, and everything looks like, you know, Sheriff Andy Taylor's just down the street. You know, it can't be any later than the early 60s, like pre-Kennedy assassination, but yet everyone's driving around in big, huge boat cars from like 1972. And so you've got all the classic Lynch stuff going on. I think it's his best film that he ever did. I think it's his most cohesive film they ever made. It's not like Lost Highway, where I think halfway through it he's like, what film am I doing exactly? This is very cohesive. And it's got all your typical, just like Ed Wood Jr., David Lynch has his little group of players that he likes to have in there, and they're all present in there. And it's just, I mean, I can't talk about it too much because then I give away things, but if you haven't seen Blue Velvet, you really need to take a look at Blue Velvet, because that's just so much fun. So much fun.
You see, for a minute there, I thought you were going to recommend Ishtar, and I was a little bit worried, but I'm glad
Ishtar, well, Ishtar was a close 127th pick of mine, sticking with the numerology from earlier.
Didn't that open against Star Wars in '77?
What, Ishtar?
Yeah. Didn't it?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
I heard it did. I only know of that movie because of, well, you just brought it up during the break. So I only know that movie because it was regularly featured as a joke on Red Letter Media's Half in the Bag. So, but otherwise, yeah, I agree with Blue Velvet is very good. Yeah, I saw it back in college, and I can definitely kind of affirm that it's great. And a lot of David Lynch's stuff is great. Have you watched any of the new Twin Peaks at all?
Yes, and I'm enjoying it. Other people I know, it's kind of split. Some of them like, well, this just isn't right. And, I don't know. I think it is. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I'm having fun with it. But, you know, a lot of people, they just look at this stuff like it shouldn't be revisited. You know, like it was there, that was it was perfect, leave it alone. And, you know, I'm not going to argue with them one way or the other. I'm enjoying it. But Blue Velvet, I could watch that, you know, once a week, and I wouldn't get burned out on it. It's just, it's so good. It's a lot of fun. So I recommend that one highly to anybody that is unfamiliar with it. People are always like, well, I have to check my Netflix and see it. And it's almost never on there, you know. People get it on like a DVD or a Blu-ray.
It's worth it.
Or just whatever you have to do. Don't wait for it to be on Netflix, okay, you know.
Yeah, I'd say it's worth getting like even the DVD version of Netflix, even just to watch that. But
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Sure thing. That's all the time we have for this episode of the Fox Valley Film Critics. You can find more of our reviews and videos, podcasts at the Groupthink Productions YouTube page. You can follow me on Twitter at NASocialCriti, that's critic without the C at the end. And you can find more of our written reviews at the NASocialCritic.tumblr.com. I'm Tyler with the Fox Valley Film Critics. Have a wonderful day. All right, just gotta let the credits roll.
Credits are rolling.
Yeah, credits are rolling.
Humbling. Like slinky down the stairs. We're going up?
Yeah, they go up.
Oh my gosh, you should have them go this way. You should have them like swipe left. What does that mean on Tinder? You would know, you being a big Tinder fan. What does that mean when you swipe left on there?
In what world am I a major Tinder fan?
Well, in the extended Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think.
I'm like the alternate Doctor Strange alternate universe. Me is super into Tinder.
It's way into Tinder. Like you're gonna like just legally change your name, like so it's like Cher, Madonna, Prince, Tinder.
gosh.
That'd be you. Yeah.